I know that you are America's leading divorce attorney.
I'll take it.
So we're going to, like I said, we're going to kind of dive right in. But before we get to all that, you have this great website and this great feature, trustedprenup.com, which I feel like a lot of the celebrities that we're going to talk about could have either used that or should use that. So tell me all about it.
Yeah, so, you know, in 25 years as a divorce lawyer, there was a period of time where prenups were really something that people believed like only the wealthy needed. But the truth is, it's actually something that for people on the come up, people who are not super wealthy, it makes it even more important. It's actually something that should be very accessible for people. And what I always try to tell people is everyone has a prenup. You either have one that was written by the government and can be changed by the government without your consent, or one that you and the person you allegedly love more than the other 8 billion other options, that the two of you can write the rules. It's your relationship, it should be your rules. So Trusted Prenup was really created on the idea of let's democratize prenups, let's normalize prenups, let's normalize the conversation, and let's also use prenups and the conversation about them as an entry point to talk about important things in an early stage of a relationship where there's an abundance of optimism and abundance of, you know, good feelings towards each other. So yeah, trustedprenup.com was born of that. We've been thrilled by the success of it. We have people from all 50 states who are using it, and we've made a price point that I think makes it really accessible for people. And an offshoot of that became sort of serendipitously, you know, a bunch of the people on the team, myself included, are all dog people and cat people, but particularly dog people. And we all, you know, were talking about our pets at some point. Mine are seniors, they're 14 and 15, but I got them when they were, you know, a couple months old. And I was talking to them about how the law has evolved in recent years. And when I started 25 years ago, we treated dogs like we did a toaster oven, like it was property. And it wasn't like, but we know that, you know, we know a dog's not a child, but it's more like a child than a toaster oven. So the law thankfully has evolved, and now we actually have like full-scale custody trials of dogs and things like that. But what we were thinking about is, you know, how do we, because we saw how popular on trustedprenup.com the feature of including pet clauses was. So we said, you know, what's a way that we could make this more accessible to people, just this issue, this petnup concept. And we decided, you know what, not only let's do it, but let's do it in a way that actually is like helpful to animals rather than something that we're looking to turn into something profitable. So what we did is we made a decision. We're going to make trustedpetnup.com. We're going to make it accessible to people. If you rescue or adopt an animal of any age, a companion animal of any age, and that can be dogs, cats, birds, lizards, anything, you have for free, you can get your Prenup. And it doesn't have to be that you're getting married. It can be you're cohabitating or in a relationship with someone or a roommate situation. But it gives you this rule set that clearly defines, okay, in the event that we move in different directions, here's what we're going to do with the animals.
So I want to get your opinion on Taylor and
let's do it.
Let's dive right into it, because as we know, she is a billionaire. He's worth about, I think, $90 million. So obviously they should have a prenup going into this
I jokingly say that from an economic standpoint, Travis is like, you know, like Taylor is like 10 and a half, you know, Travis's. She's like, in terms of net worth, there's an order of magnitude greater net worth. I mean, neither of them's on, you know, going to be like, you know, on food stamps anytime. But I think that they're both doing really well. But there's a lot of incentive in a situation like that for there to be clarity about what would happen if the marriage eventually ended.
What, in your opinion, what would be some must-haves in a prenup in this situation of this type of magnitude of money?
Yeah, I mean, look, some of the key things that any prenup has to have is some basic financial disclosure so that people understand what they're waiving rights to or what it is that each person has, both assets and liabilities. What you really want to do with a prenup, because you're thinking about a future that we don't really know exactly what it's going to be. You know, my grandma used to say to me all the time, like, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. And so I really do think you have to create categories. And those are like kind of rule sets that people can work within when they're making decisions during the marriage about finances. So what I encourage always, and what would fit for a couple like that, is what I call a yours, mine, and ours model, which is if it's in my name, whether it's an asset or a liability, it's mine. If it's in your name, asset or liability, it's yours. And then if it's in our joint names, we just divide it 50-50. And that gives a couple the control and the opportunity to have conversations about, hey, I just got this big, deal in, and I'm going to put this much in my account. I'll put this much in your account. Let's put this much in joint accounts. And it encourages that kind of active communication that I think is actually really good for a relationship.
Of course, yeah.
One of the reasons people end up in my office for divorces is because they can't have hard conversations. They've never, but conversations are like a muscle. Like if you work it, it gets stronger and you get better at it. So I think even just talking about, hey, what prenup makes sense for us? What makes you feel safe? I always tell people part of feeling loved is feeling safe.
Of course.
And I think it's really important for people to have conversations about, hey, if someone hurt you, I'd want to protect you, even if that someone was me. So how do we find a way for you to feel safe in this relationship and me to feel safe in this relationship? And I think even if you never signed a prenup, that's a conversation worth having.
Right. Yeah, no, definitely. Do you feel that maybe all of her music rights, everything is going to be in that mine category? All of his endorsements will be in that his category? And then
they're both in very unique situations because Taylor, aside from being a very talented musician and performer and touring and all the things that come from that, songwriter, very gifted musician, owns her catalog, is going to continue to be prolific in making music the way she does. So she has a lot of current interests and a lot of future interests. Travis is in a different position. Obviously, I think he has a growing presence as a media personality and as a spokesperson. But I've represented a number of NFL players, and I can tell you, they have a very short career because it's such a physically demanding sport and they're so prone to injury because of the physical nature of it. That's why their contracts, like I've represented baseball players, hockey players, they can have really long careers. But football players, you're talking for a lot of them, Tom Brady's the exception. You have people that have 3, 4, 5-year careers, but hundreds of millions of dollars potentially of revenue during this very short window. So it's really important for that person to protect those things. So I think they both have good incentives to do it. And I think, again, for any couple, wherever they're at in their journey, it's just a good conversation to be having.
Do you feel like those conversations are already happening? I would imagine.
I'd imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I will tell you, I think these are both people. One of the things I can tell you representing, celebrities and athletes and high net worth people, they have so many lawyers around them.
Right.
Like, like to the normal mom and pop person on the street, a lawyer's like, ooh, I heard from a lawyer. But, to celebrities and athletes, like high net worth people, like a lawyer's like a plumber.
Sure,
like, there's just tons of them.
Yeah, he's got an NFL team worth of
like he had lawyers look at his NFL contracts. He's had lawyers help with real estate transactions. Taylor's had 40 billion lawyers help her with all the copyright issues and claims. So these are not people that are like, oh no, a lawyer. They know a lot of lawyers. So I'm sure they're getting good advice.
And you think that they're also, didn't mean to cut you off, but do you think that they also sign like NDAs and things like that? Because
it's very common that people in those positions sign NDAs. I mean, most of my high net worth and particularly public facing, like I have a lot of very high net worth clients, they're in finance.
Right.
You'd pass them on the street, you'd never know that they owned, like half of Manhattan. But, for celebrities, NDAs become much more normalized. It's a much more typical practice because when you're in an intimate relationship with someone, dating them, cohabitating with them, marrying them, you have access to a lot of information that people pay a lot of money for, whether it's someone's skincare regimen or what their cosmetic surgery procedures they've had or what medications they might take, things that could be potentially embarrassing to them. So NDAs is a very common thing to do. And all the people around those celebrities, all their assistants, they all have NDAs.
Sure.
So there is a control of the flow of information. And I think that's for both people's protection.